Quickly about me, for those that don't know me, my name's Adam. I have been in sales for about 2.5 years now. Born in England, raised in Spain, moved to play some rugby in France when I was 19, lived there for a couple of years, and then finished my career in Germany. I lived in Germany for 12 years, and 3 years ago, almost to the day, I came to Colombia, went dead flat broke, was losing my business through COVID, and through that experience, found my way into the world of high-ticket sales. From there, I've run the complete gambit. I've been a setter, a DM setter, an appointment setter, a closer. I then had the opportunity to coach a lot of reps. A lot of you that are actually sitting in the room right now. That's actually how Joel and Harlan and I first met, was through having the opportunity to coach a lot of reps through the objection box. And then last year, I got an opportunity to run and manage a sales team and scale that from around $200,000 per month to $1 million per month in 5 months. From there, I've now also had the opportunity with Joel and Harlan to do the same for multiple teams, and that's kind of led us to be talking together here today. So, quick show of hands, who here is on a sales team? Who is a part of a sales team? Cool. Who here, who is a part of a sales team, wants to do something else after sales? Cool. Of those of you who feels that sales management or running or taking care of sales teams is something that speaks to you that you would like to do? Cool, so a fair few of you, that's good. I'm not gonna bore the shit out of people who don't give a fuck about sales management. That's great, that's really good. So, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for you, but I do know that for myself, 2 big things stand out for me there. For me personally, 2 things that really attracted me about sales management and that sort of role was, number 1, I'm going to use the big word fulfillment, but essentially it's what we were talking about in terms of self-actualization and then self-transcendence. It's the ability to acquire a skill, to gain knowledge, to gain a bit of expertise in an area, and then be able to give that back to the next person, right? The other thing that I'm very, very glad that Danny said there is leverage. When you guys say that there is something or something more that you want to do after or beyond closing, I think, and what I interpret that as, is I want to be able to apply more leverage to this skill that I've acquired. And so it's just basic, simple mathematics, isn't it? With 1 hour of my time, Kenny, how many sales calls can you take in 1 hour? 1, right? And that call can either be a sale or a no sale, right? If you get good at it, you'll have more sales than you do no sales, correct? Now, obviously, if you step into some sort of a role where you are responsible for multiple closers and multiple sales teams, with 1 hour of your time, if you have 3 guys on your team, how many sales calls can you technically take in that 1 hour? 3, right? Now, of course, if you're not very good at what you do, you may still have the same outcome here, right? You may still only make 1 sale in that 1 hour, but you're essentially tripling your chances. And as you get better, and as you develop a team, and you develop their skill set, what we're hopefully doing is turning more of those reds into greens. Correct? Would that be the goal? Yay or nay? Cool. So from there, if I'm now managing multiple teams, what is that doing to my leverage now? If I've got 3 guys over here, and I've got 4 guys over here, and I've got another 2 guys over here, how many more chances do I have of making money now? A lot more, right? And the better you get, the more chances you have of these boxes turning green than you do of them having red. Everybody follow? Yes. Picking up what I'm putting down? Yes. Cool. And the cool thing is the other point of leverage that you now have is actually also here, isn't it? How many more people do you now get to pour into, work with, develop relationships with, give back what you've acquired. Fucking cool, right? Yes. Cool. So we kind of sold on sales management? Yeah. Sweet. All right. So what I want to do is just make sure that we're kind of a little bit clear and get an understanding and to kind of wrap our heads around what's the difference. Now, I'm sure you'll have had good leaders in the past that weren't very good managers. And I hope Joel wouldn't mind me saying this. Great leader, not a good manager. Now, that's not to say that he can't become a good manager. And so let me go on a quick side route for you. We will have natural tendencies and abilities. When I was playing rugby, you were limited at a certain point by your physicality. In English, or in England, not in English actually, in England we say a good big un will always beat a good little un. Meaning a guy who's just really big and really good will always beat a guy who's really good but just smaller than him in rugby. So there's a physical limitation. When I got into the realm of sales, suddenly there's no more physical limitation. It's all just in your mind. And so I suddenly realized, oh shit, any skill that I need to acquire to attain the next level of fulfillment, of leverage, I can. I just may need to put in a little bit more effort and work into it than the next guy. But I can grow taller, and it's hard for me to put on 50 pounds, right? And so when I say that Joel might not be a natural manager, it doesn't mean that he can't become a good one. And the same goes for leadership. You may not feel like you are a natural leader. I do believe that it's all inside us somewhere. It may just mean that you have to put a little bit more effort into acquiring that skill than somebody that has that natural tendency. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so if anybody has any mental blockages around, oh, I don't know if I can do that, I'm not organized, I'm not a good manager, I'm not naturally organized, I'm not yet a good manager. Super important how you speak to yourself. So, you're learning a skill, and there is no constraint. This blew my I don't know if you like grasp how fucking like incredible that is. This blew my mind when I came from rugby into sales, because rugby was all, there were caps. There's just a limit at some point, and in sales there is none. That's the beauty of it. And so going back to leadership versus management, the best definition, working definition that I have heard of leadership so far is that leadership is the part of communication which invites others to participate in the success of an organization. Leadership is the part of communication which invites others to participate in the success of an organization. If leadership is a part, if this is communication, if leadership is a part of communication, what that means is leadership is only communication. Does that make sense? If you think about it that way? So when you're running a sales team, there is an aspect of management, but there is always an aspect of leadership, because all you're doing is communicating. And you're always communicating through the words you say, your body language, the way you react, your emotional control. Everything is communication. Everything is giving off a signal that others are receiving. Now, management, the best working definition that I've heard of this, that I like, is the act of allocating resources to increase the input to output ratio. It's the act of allocating resources to increase the input-output ratio. Does anybody feel a little bit lost with that definition? Yeah. Okay. So, with leadership, we're communicating and inviting others to participate in the success of the organization. That doesn't yet communicate or doesn't yet define who the fuck should do what and when and how, right? That is where management comes in to allocate resources in a manner which increases the input to output ratio. Meaning, if we do one of these things and we get one of these back out, but I reorganize the structure in this process where I put in one of these things and get 3 back out, I've increased the input-output ratio and therefore the end result, correct? So, to give you a quick example of this, what did McDonald's become famous for? So McDonald's, what they actually did was revolutionize the organization, the allocation of resources within a kitchen. That's what they actually first became famous for. They spent so much time on measuring the distance between the fryer and the griller and the direction that the burger would travel to get from point A, which was not a burger, to assembling the resources of the bread and the burger and the cheese and using the human resources in such a way that they could get from not a burger to a burger in 11 seconds. They've now increased the output per minute of burgers. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So what the fuck does that have to do with sales management, Adam? That sounds all pretty cool. But let's start with workshopping and brainstorming. What do you guys feel sales management is all about? What is it about? Okay, let's put it this way. When I interview someone for a role, what I like to do is ask them, imagine I have absolutely no clue what a sales manager does. Explain it to me in 60 seconds so that anybody could understand it. If somebody can do that efficiently, they know what they're doing. So the way I look at sales management, especially when scaling teams, there are a couple of different phases that a company will go through. First phase is probably, say, the $0 to $200,000 a month phase. What that typically comes down to, and I'm not going to go into too much depth into that one today, I want to give you a bit of a bigger picture than that, is in phase 1, if it's, say, the 0 to 200K, at this point, what you really need to be doing, if you are in charge of sales and you're head of sales, is you need to be reverse engineering the sales process. You need to be cracking the code of selling that offer.
Is that per month or
Per month, yeah, per month, typically. This is basically just reverse engineering the sales process. How do I crack the code of getting people to buy this? And so typically what you'll do is you'll just go to the endpoint. If this is a 10, here's my credit card. What does somebody need to go through to get them from a 1 to a 10? Reverse engineering means what do they need to see, hear, understand, feel, believe at the end of this sales call for them to feel comfortable parting ways with their money and become a client. That's it. And so I give you a quick real-life example where we did this last year. We were just talking about it over lunch just now. Was the first sales team that I managed. When I first came on, a super common objection that the guys were getting was, this sounds too good to be true, which is almost too good of an objection, right? What that meant was the whole sales process and sales call sounded so fucking amazing that this person was like, I just don't believe you anymore. Like, it can't be that good, surely. There's no way. Now, you can either get frustrated about this and say, those stupid fucking idiots, or you can just look internally, take responsibility, say, okay, what can we do to help this person understand that it's not too good to be true? That there are flaws, there are downside. Every opportunity in life has equal up and downside. Everything. You just have to know which downside you're willing to live for the upside. And so what we did was we said, okay, if this is the common objection, basically what the brain is doing is looking for the danger. Our limbic systems are wired to help us survive, not to thrive. They're looking for danger, they're alerting us and trying to keep us safe. And so this brain's need for security, for certainty, wasn't being satisfied. It wasn't being satisfied. And so we needed to satisfy it. And so what we said was, okay, at the top of the presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to tell them about all the downside. Sounds completely counterintuitive in sales. But what we did was what Alex Hormozi calls the damning admissions. And so we basically upfront told them, before we get started, before I tell you about this, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. This is a real business that we're starting. This is not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. You're going to be putting time, money, effort resources, energy into something and you're not going to see a result for the first 60, 90 days, maybe even longer, you're going to want to give up. You're going to wonder why you started in the first place. You're going to be the overweight guy that goes to the gym for 2 weeks every single day and doesn't lose weight and then gives up and wonders why he isn't losing weight. On the other side of that, however, and so what we did was we basically, in the sales process, said, okay, if this is the end result we need and this is something that's blocking us from getting it, then we're going to insert this here to counteract that. One last quick example would be fear. People just being fearful of moving forward at the end. They have the money, they want the help, they need the help, but there's just this little bit of fear. Identity frame. And so we also installed this with great success at the team was managing last year, was essentially introducing a frame to help people adopt the identity needed to be that courageous person at the end of the call. And so essentially within the process, we would kind of almost time out and just kind of between you and I, Harlan, I have to say you're by far my favorite kind of person to work with here. Because, I mean, man, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that I speak to on a daily basis. Man, and they say they want all these amazing things. They scroll around on Instagram looking at everybody else making money and living this wonderful life. And they watch all the YouTube videos, they download all the podcasts, all the free PDFs. They hop on calls like these. And then at the end they say, let me go and think about it. Let me go and, wait for my partners to give me permission to go and be successful. Or, I've got to save up all my money. So like all these crazy excuses that just keep them stuck. It's such a shame, man. Like it's really disheartening, It breaks my heart because you speak to them in a month or a year's time, they're in the exact same position. But it's people like yourself that are willing and wanting to step into that uncomfortability and take those tough decisions, to take the steps forward that they know are going to lead them to a better life, regardless of what might be in front of them. I mean, would that be fair to say, or am I way left field here? And so what we would do is get them to agree to being the kind of person needed to take the action at the end of the call despite any fear or discomfort they might be feeling. And so these are all examples of reverse engineering a sales process. And you can all do this as long as you're not being told to read a script word for word. This is something that you can all do in your own sales processes and you start getting good at. You can start looking at what are the things that are coming up that are stopping people from moving forward, and what can I do within the call to help them with that, to help combat that. So to get to this point, essentially, you're going to be reverse engineering the sales process, which is going to allow you to do step number 2, which is create a fire onboarding process. Without this, you can't do this, can you? You can't get people to come and sell something if you don't know how to fucking sell it yourself. Or at least teach other people to sell it, okay? So what I want to focus on, though, is what we specialize in here at Nomadic Closer is getting companies or sales teams from 200 to $1 million a month in sales. This may not be the way to do it. This may not even be the best way to do it. I don't know. But having done it myself, all I can give you are the lessons. The lessons that I learned and the observations I made over that period of time. And one big observation I made was that sales management, especially in this realm, needs all of the exact same elements that a business needs to scale. So let's think together about the phases that a client goes through from being not even aware of a company to one day no longer being a client, to being offboarded as a client. What are the steps that a company has to have in place to go through? I'll kick us off just to make sure we start in the right direction. The first thing a company needs to do is they're going to have to generate some leads, correct? Which means we got a couple of buckets coming. We got the buckets of marketing, sales, and fulfillment. Everybody familiar with these terms? Yep. Sweet. So once you have generated some leads, what is the next step in that process? If the company's good at what they're doing. Aha, okay. Conversion is coming. This is a big piece that a lot of companies miss as well. What should ideally come between me generating a lead and trying to convert that lead? Yes, always. Who said nurture? Nurture? Bang on, my man. Yep, so that is the purpose. That's the purpose of nurturing a lead, right? Lead generation is great. I can get someone to click on an ad. It doesn't mean they're going to buy yet, does it? Good companies in their marketing will build a know, like, and trust factor. So after I've nurtured that lead, I'm going to want to convert it, correct? Once I've converted that lead, what is, let's see, because now we're into fulfillment. Let's pull you closer, my friend. What is the very first thing after I've converted that lead? Onboarding. Thank you very much. Once I've onboarded that client, and they are now a client, what do good companies do with that client? What do they do with the value of that client? They increase it, don't they? So they will increase the LTV of that client until one day we all shed a tear because they are no longer a client and there's some form of an offboarding process, correct? Cool. Will we all agree that in rough layman's terms, these are all of the processes that need to be in place for a client to go from not a client to a paying client to no longer a client, correct? The biggest realization I had was that if you look at sales management through this lens, you can't not win. And I would rather set things up in a way that I just can't not win. Sales management. You need to always be recruiting. So marketing now becomes recruitment. You need to be generating leads. You need to be starting conversations. You need to be getting to know new closers, new people. You need to also nurture those relationships so that you can, when the time is right, bring them through a hiring process. Once you've hired them, you're going to want to onboard that rep. The only difference here, let's call this hiring, let's call this fulfillment. The only difference here is that after onboarding, you're going to want to have a ramp-up period before you then look to increase the lifetime value of that closer. And you may one day then potentially part ways and you offboard them. Without having been sales managers or potentially run sales teams, does that way of thinking through sales management make sense to you guys? What most people do is they focus purely on this and this. Has anybody experienced this being a closer on a team? Offboarding. The last one, offboarding. Has anybody experienced this being a closer on a team? Here's the onboarding document. Here's your logins. Best of luck to you until I fire you. Am I right or am I right? We've all been there, haven't we? And so, I want to quickly run through these, and we'll dive into a bit more depth into whichever one you guys want to. So, we'll get to the ramp up, Kenny. We'll start with the recruitment aspect of things. Lead gen and lead nurture. Why should a sales manager have a system in place to be generating leads, building relationships, and getting to know new closers? Why should he bother? If you have a team of 3 guys and they are producing, easy math, $300,000 per month in revenue, one guy says, cheers, Adam, I'm off. What's your revenue going to be the next month? 200,000. Business owner, happy or sad? Sad. Sales manager who earns also commission on those 200,000, happy or sad? And stupid for letting it happen to him. We all in agreement? Right. So, a good sales manager is always recruiting. He's always recruiting, but he's only hiring when he needs it. If I am not always recruiting, I can't hire when I need it, and now I'm going to be in a place of scarcity, and I'm going to make fast decisions, and mistakes love quick decisions. And then this is going to go wrong, this is not going to go as well as it could, then probably not going to get through here, and then you can sack all this off. Does that make sense? Cool. Sweet. If you have something that works, make it better. Optimize it. Make it better. Make it better. Make it better until you can't make it any better. Once you can't make it any better, do a lot more of it. Once you cannot physically do any more of it, then and only then, please, for the love of God, if all business owners can hear me right now, don't fucking do anything new. Who here has been on an offer and it's gone south because we tried a new thing? And then who lost their fucking jobs and their income? Right. Bunch of fucking madmen. And everybody in the team was saying, can we just keep doing the thing that we know that's working? Anybody had that experience? So, optimize. If you feel that those three guys are working at optimum conversions, you cannot get the show rate up any higher, you cannot get the close rates up any higher, you can't get the lead to schedule rates any higher, your ROAS, you can't get your ROAS any higher, you don't feel that there's anything left in your capabilities to optimize, and this can take fucking years. That's the beauty of it. This could take years to get to that point. Just keep optimizing, correct. Once I don't feel that there's any more room, or I have diminishing returns on the effort that I'm putting in to optimize. Meaning, if it's going to take this amount of resources to increase show rate by 1%, is that input versus output equation a good return on my attention? Did that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Once you're there, just do more of it. Pump more ad spend, pump more money into it, pump more money into it, pump more money, bring more guys on, bring more guys on, bring more guys on. So this here, just to be clear, I didn't do a very good job of graphically depicting that, but this is scaling a sales team. It's not necessarily optimizing. Those are two different things. But once you feel that the effort that you would put in to optimizing something is no longer worth the output, the increase in optimization that you gain, then let's just do more of it. Make sense? Cool. And then and only then do something new. Because if it's it's so common. Something new, a new marketing strategy, a new marketing channel, a new product, a new this, a new that. Business owners, entrepreneurs, also closers, you are all business owners. If you're a closer, you're a sales rep, you are your own business. You've got your own marketing, you've got your own sales, you've got your own fulfillment. Your marketing is people being aware that you are a closer and you're fucking good at what you do. Sales is you landing the role and negotiating higher comms. Fulfillment is you delivering the service of closing deals for the business. You are your own fucking business. We get falsely rewarded for doing new things. Why? When I do something new, it releases dopamine. It's exciting. It's the thing that changed my life right at the very beginning when I transitioned from being in the 9-to-5 into being an entrepreneur, being self-employed. That was the big breakthrough, wasn't it? And so if it was true then, well, it must be true now. And if I do it in a week, it must be true again. But it's not. It's not. So that's a quick side note on Better, More, New as to when to optimize, when to scale, those decisions. So let's get back at it. Lead gen, lead nurture, that's your recruiting. Good sales managers are always recruiting, hiring when they need them. Hiring. When you're hiring, good sales managers will have a system and a filtration system as to how they make the decision of who they bring on. All good companies should have a clear vision, mission, and values. In my personal opinion, it's not a universal truth, but in my opinion, the ones that I've seen that have done very well have a very clear vision, mission, value structure. That should basically be your filtration system, is the values. Does this person align with the values and the vision, the mission that the company has? If that's in place, there's a higher likelihood that this person is going to do well on this offer than somebody that's not. So what you also want is a system for this. Now, depending on the volume, depending on the demand on your time, you may want to have a system where you have group interviews that move through to one-on-ones. This will be offer dependent, time dependent, and dependent on the demands of the company and how quickly they want to scale. If they want to scale quickly, well, you're going to have to generate a lot of leads. You're going to have to nurture a lot of leads. And you're also going to have to probably do group interviews to then filter through to one-on-ones so that you can handle a higher volume and scale at a quicker pace. If there's not such a high demand, you might be able to skip the group interviews and just do one-on-one interviews where you'll want to be checking against alignment, and vision, mission, values, and then in skill set. They may be aligned in vision, mission, values, but this person may be very, very adept at selling to the 0 to 1 crowd, meaning first-time investors, 9-to-5ers, investing into their first business opportunity, where there's a lot of emotional leverage, there's a lot of commitment and responsibility. This is a done-with-you offer that requires a quite emotional sale, or you might be managing an offer that is a very high-ticket, done-for-you, kind of high-level 1 to 100 crowd investor style sale, which requires a slightly different skill set. Okay, so somebody can be very highly aligned in their vision, mission, values, but their skill set is more aligned to this avatar than it is to this avatar. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? Trying to power on through this so I can keep you all awake so we can get this done before sundown. All right, let's go. Cool. So, a good sales manager will have a system behind the way he generates and nurtures leads. He'll have time blocked off in his calendar for it on a weekly basis. He will have time blocked off in his calendar for hiring if he's in a phase of hiring. Now, this is, I believe, probably one of the most underrated but most powerful phases of growing a sales team is the onboarding process. This is so crucial. The onboarding experience of a closer is equal to the onboarding experience of a client. If you guys have a fucking incredible onboarding experience, well, after you've paid money into a company, are you more or less likely to pay more money afterwards? More likely. Therefore, increasing your LTV, correct? Are you more or less likely to tell your friends and family about this company? It's the same for sales management. And so the more time you can put into creating an incredible onboarding experience for a rep, the more likely they are to stay with the company, which by default increases LTV. Time by default increases LTV. They could bring in the same 100K cash collected every single month, but just by extending their lifetime by 6, 9, 12 months, you've increased the LTV of that closer for the company. Is this making sense? Fucking A. So, I want to talk about everything. So, quickly, couple of things I make sure are absolutely, they are not missing from any onboarding document. The very first thing they'll get trained on is the vision, the mission, and the values of the company. That's the first thing I need you to know and understand deeply. If a closer, a sales rep, can be on board with the vision, mission, values of the company, like that's it. That guy's sold. He's with you. The conviction that you'll have on those calls is just a different level to here's your logins to the CRM. Best of fucking luck to you, my son. The second thing I'll make sure is avatar training. Notice there is not a product training in sight so far, correct? Avatar training. There is a person. They have a problem. And then, and only then, will I teach them and train them on the process that the company uses to help that person solve that problem. First, I'll train them on the person. What kind of person are we going to be speaking to? Old, young, male, female? What are the typical characteristics? And what are the psychographics of this person? Are they a 0 to 1, a 1 to 100? Are they first-time investors? They've invested themselves before. Are they fearful? Are they low confidence? Are they arrogant? Are they what are the psychographics? What are the typical problems that they have in their daily life? Understand that. It almost doesn't matter what you're selling anymore. If you can get into people's heads, you're done. So then and only then, I'll teach them on the process. That'll be the first bit. After that, we'll go through the boring CRM kind of stuff and that kind of shit. That's the very last. That's the thing I'm least worried about. Okay? So, Last thing I'll say, as a sales manager, I'll always do this in a way where the person can go through this training in their own time. I set expectations as to what that time should be, and they're going to self-report back some sort of task. I'm going to give them some sort of task to self-report into Slack so that I know exactly how far they've got through the training, that they've actually had to engage brain and give some sort of answer to the information that they're consuming. Make sense? Sweet. All right, we've got a couple left. Ramp up. What the hell's a ramp up? If they're hired and they're onboarded, aren't they just let loose on calls and just go make sales? No. Ramp up period means, I guess in the normal world, this is like probation period, I guess. Probation just sounds a little bit like icky, doesn't it? Yeah, probation's like, I'm watching you, Sonny Jim, don't you fuck up, isn't it? Ramp up is the process of helping someone get from here to KPI.
Yes.
Cool. So, a couple of ways to go about it. Kenny asked, what's an ideal ramp-up situation? I don't know. It could completely dependent on the offer, depending on demand, depending on how many calls you have, how many leads you're getting. It's really hard to say. For me, personally, the sweet spot that I found, so we used to do 2 weeks, but I kind of scratched that and now like to look at, and this is for offers that are up and running so that you can give good, clear expectations. I want to checkpoint at 10 calls taken. This would be like just a little checkpoint here. How are we doing? I don't necessarily need someone to be at KPI, meaning what is the amount of deals or the close rate or whatever you choose your KPI to be that you want a team member to be at. I don't necessarily need them to be at KPI yet, but what I do want to see is progress. I want to see that we're moving in the right direction. Okay, so typically we want to have a check mark at 10 calls taken, and then another one at 20 calls taken. At 20 calls taken, we should have a good idea as to whether this person is good to go, or at this point, just not a good fit. Cool? So I used to do this in time frames and say, okay, we'll do after 2 weeks or after 4 weeks, but then it depends on the show rate, it depends on the marketing, it depends on the lead flow. 2 weeks could mean 2 calls. Well, that's not a very good time. It's not a good it's not a good data spread to make a good informed decision. So all I want to see here after 10 calls taken is, are we moving in the right direction, yes or no? If not, meaning I've given feedback on how things can be improved and it's not being implemented, it's kind of a clear sign that it's not going to be implemented after 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 calls, is it? That's the main thing. Can I see some level of progress as this person getting better? And ideally, I would want to see a couple of deals in there from the first couple of calls, depending on the offer, depending on the sales cycle. It's all super, super dependent. But what we're looking for is a period of time that I can pour into this person to get them from being here to KPI. Does anybody not know what I mean by being at KPI? No stress if not. No, real cool with being at KPI. Okay, so KPI, completely made up numbers, but essentially you want some sort of measuring stick. You know, do I want this person to be at 25% close rate? Do I want a minimum of 50% show rate? Depends on the offer, depends on the averages of the team. Cool, so after ramp-up period, we now have a fully fledged full-time member of the team. And this is where a lot of sales managers will also drop the ball. One of my biggest lessons and learnings from going from being a closer to running a sales team was that if you look at everything through the eyes of a closer, essentially the way you will set up the sales process is that people will send you their last 3 months of their bank statements first, and they'll show you, all of their transactions, their current, bank account balance, and then they'll be able to get on a call with the closer. If you look at everything through the eyes of a closer. But obviously, no business owner is going to do that. Now, business owners are going to want cold, hard facts and numbers, and they're more often than not going to take into account the day-to-day struggles of a closer, right? And so you have a very, very unique position as a manager if you are sitting between a team and a business owner as to how do you balance. And I had to learn this fucking quick, and it's not easy. It's not easy because you're essentially trying to do both. You're trying to make everyone happy, which often makes no one happy. And so for me, that was why I asked it. The question that I will always be asking is, what problem are we solving by doing this? So often there'll be things in a process, in a company, in a sales process, in a marketing process, in a meeting structure, that we just kind of like, I don't know, we just kind of do it. Seems like a good idea. Okay, but what problem are we solving by doing this? If somebody cannot clearly articulate which problem they are solving by doing that, I'm going to question the fuck out of why we're doing it. Yeah. And so if the problem that we're solving is that they have in the past experienced a negative ROI from onboarding and ramping up a closer, which can happen, where a business will invest marketing spend, ad spend and marketing dollars into a closer, and they will have a negative ROI initially, potentially, until this person ramps up and then becomes a profitable asset to the company. Well, if they have gone through this cycle too many times, they may be solving the problem of negative cash flow and protecting the company's, with that explanation, I'm like, okay, I get that. Again, going back to quickly, universal truths. If it's not a universal truth, it's a belief system. I'll question the fuck out of it, which means I have gotten rid of the concept of right or wrong, correct or false. I don't think it's right or wrong. It's just what problem is it solving? Is it solving an actual problem? Yes, cool. Have at it. If you can't articulate the problem that you're solving with it, probably not worth doing. So this part here now, helpful, valuable, because I know nobody's I don't know if we've had any sales managers, anybody with sales management experience, but what I want to, Cosmo, of course, cool. For those aspiring to or thinking about that sales management might be something for them, is this helpful, the way that we're thinking through this, the way you can see which part of the wheels and the cogs that need to be in place? Yeah? Cool. Please shout at me if it's not. So, increasing the LTV of a closer. This is where so many companies and sales managers drop the ball as well. You're onboarded, you're ramped up. Don't talk to me if there's no more problems, just go make money for me. See you later. In my anecdotal experience, again, not a universal truth, in my anecdotal experience, there will be people that say A players don't need to be managed, you just got to let them do their thing. In my anecdotal experience, that's not been true. What it means is, and I think we've spoken about it today already, is that to increase the LTV of a closer, the lifetime value, meaning how much money this closer is going to make the company, we've now got to figure out what do they need to stay longer at the company. So how are we going to do this? So we want them to stay longer and close more deals per dollar spent on that closer. These are the two factors that I can use to increase the LTV of a closer, correct? Cool. So if somebody's an A player and they've got a 120% close rate and a 3,072% show rate, well, maybe I don't need to be on their ass and reviewing all their calls every day and giving them feedback on, maybe you could have said this word and that word. But what does this person need to feel like they want to stick around a little bit longer? So this can come in a few different forms. It could come in the form of a great compensation plan. The best compensation plans that I've seen are not linear, but they are exponential. Meaning if you hit this number, then you have a nice boost. If you hit this number, you have an even bigger boost. So they tail end at the top like that. I haven't got time for them. Okay, couple other things. So incentives could be one. What could be something else that, let's say somebody's got a 99.9% close rate. What else could they want or could help them stay at the company longer? Harlan? Culture. A great culture. So they enjoy being that. This is culture. I just drew there. I just drew culture. It's a person and it's other people around them. Yes, that better? That's culture. You didn't know. So a great culture. Cool. Kenny? Yeah. So up to a trajectory within the company. So what I've noticed is the overarching theme is growth. progress. They just want to feel like they're progressing. That's all. They just want to feel like they're going somewhere. Like they're not stagnating, like they're not just repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. In my anecdotal experience, there may be other things, but what I've seen is the best closers, they just want to feel like they're just moving forward. And in terms of closing more deals, well, if somebody could increase their close rate, well, this is going to come down to reviews, call reviews, training, feedback, and one-on-ones. And this is where sales management has an aspect of leadership, management, and coaching. It does combine those three skills. A good sales manager will have all those three skills. It's a more versatile position than you might be thinking. And if anybody's ever had a bad sales manager, it's probably because they were lacking in one or two of those areas. Probably. Cool. All right, but that's not going to be the case here, now is it? Because we're all fucking amazing. So, that's how we increase LTV. And then lastly, not going to go too deep into this, but you do want to have some form of system around offboarding. Now, what I mean by that is not just how to delete logins from the system and giving them a little farewell, but at what point is this person no longer deemed to be a fit for the team? And so that's a process of setting incredibly clear expectations. And this is easier in companies that are already up and running, that you know your KPIs, you know that the numbers that you want you guys to be at. But this is setting those expectations here, even here, and here, as to at what point, at what level of performance, over what time period, after what interjection points are we then just no longer a fit for each other and need to go separate ways. Okay? Getting good at those conversations does also make you a better person. I'm not going to lie, because they're not fucking fun. Yay! Yep. So, first you've got objective data. Well, the numbers say this. My return on ad spend on this closer is this, or even negative, right? It could be that this person is no longer a profitable asset for the company. That's objective data. But then there's subjective data, isn't there? There's subjective culture fit, alignment, there's potential, and there's also extraneous circumstances. This guy's just going through a breakup. This guy's just had his dog die. I don't know. There could be things surrounding sales that are affecting sales that you feel as a manager are developable or reparable or savable. And what that conversation is going to come down to is your negotiating and sales skills. Everything is sales. Everything is sales. When I create those onboarding documents, I'm selling you on that offer. Like, that's literally what I'm doing. I'm creating a VSL. I'm creating something that's selling you into the vision, the mission of this company to get you excited and wanting to be a part of it. Everything is sales. And so that conversation, essentially, you're going to need to look at and understand objective data, but then also be able to present subjective data in a way that the business owner can see that his objective data is going to go up. Did that make sense, the way I just phrased that? Yeah. Cool. So, very last quick thing. Big lesson for me. Let's touch right on that. So firstly, this process, this way of, that's a fucking mess. This way of looking at sales management. Make sense? Yeah? Helpful? Cool. Typically, when you come in, you're going to be focusing your efforts on this, typically. Good sales managers will have a system for this and for this also. That's what's going to set you apart. If you are in a conversation with a business owner about becoming a sales manager or being responsible for a sales team, if you could run through that with a business owner, do you think they would be more or less likely to hire you as a sales manager? Right. So if we understand this concept, essentially what it's doing is equipping you with all the tools that you need to be able to sell yourself for the position, but also then to be able to put things in place that's going to scale a sales team. It's not yet optimizing, but scaling. Cool with that? Sweet. Last thing I want to touch on real quick is the relationship between yourself and a business owner. I'll just give you this quick nugget because I know we're getting tired now. When you step into these roles and have this responsibility, for your team and for a business owner, there are a few things you're going to have to remove from your vocabulary very fucking quickly. Is I think, I believe, and I feel. If you go to a business owner and say, I think that if we do this, we could maybe close more deals, what is that business owner going to say to you? Yeah, I think differently. Now what? Well, you know, I feel like not really, don't really care how you feel, my friend. My bank account doesn't feel anything. So, what you're going to have to do is develop a system as to how to optimize. Super, super quick. When optimizing a sales team or a sales process, you want to approach it like a scientific experiment. You're going to, that's a mess. You're going to create a hypothesis. You're going to clearly articulate what problem are we solving. You're going to need to articulate how you want to go about solving that problem. You want to go about what result you're aiming for. And how long, what time frame. This could also be like a volume thing. Just like the 10 calls taken and the 2 weeks. Could be a time frame, it could be a volume thing that you're going to run this experiment. So, the problem that we're solving is our show rate has decreased by 15% over the last 8 weeks. How we're going to increase show rate is we're going to start sending personalized AI videos using this software. I don't fucking know what you're going to do. But you're going to come up with a solution as to how you're going to go about it. Best case scenario, if you want to sell this to a business owner, is who are you modeling? If you can model something that's already successful somewhere else, the likelihood of it being successful in this company is going to be now higher, correct? Cool. We want to get it back to 60% in the next 4 weeks. And that's your project. And you're going to change just one variable, not multiple. And this is something that business owners also enjoy doing, is if we do these 7 different things, well, something's going to work, but now I don't know what. So, when communicating with business owners as to things that you want to optimize, some things that you want to bring in, you need to work with numbers and with experience in other areas of companies that you want to model that have had success in this area that you're having. That's about as quickly as I could give that to you. Okay, so that is how you then optimize the sales process, is where in the chain are we going to have the biggest return for us focusing our effort and resources and attention onto that one area. This is how we're going to go about it. This is the problem we're solving over this time frame so that we can then analyze, did it work? Yes, no. Do we need to extend, cut, or change? Make sense? Cool. All right. That was cool. That was unexpected. Thank you so much for turning out today. Thank you so much for bringing the energy and the attention and the focus to all of that. And I hope you had a good return on your attention for today. Are we ready to go get some drinks or what? Fuck yeah, let's go.